Hello, seniors. This is Kevin Jameson, and we're meeting today at the Central Bucks Senior Center, 700 North Shady Retreat Road in Doylestown, and we are just off the Doylestown bypass and Broad Street. So please feel free to come in. There are great lunches every day, Monday through Friday at noontime. And today we're having a conversation with Marguerite Quinn, Representative Marguerite Quinn, right here of Pennsylvania in our district. And so thank you very much. Welcome.
I appreciate the invitation.
Great. And so you've been coming to speak before the Central Bucks Regional Aging Task Force for a while. And what do you think the issues are for seniors in this area?
Okay. I think the issues for seniors in this area are issues that are the same for all over the state. Okay. Quite frankly, we have one of the oldest populations of seniors in the nation.
Yes. Right.
We rank 2, 3, or 4 in terms of a graying population. And I think people stay here because it's a great place to stay and live.
It's perfect, right?
Especially in a community like ours when we have such a phenomenal health care system around us. And on top of that, we're an hour away from some of the some of the best hospitals.
Right.
I'll say not just in the nation,
hospitals.
but in the world.
Right.
True. But the issues that face are issues that we've been talking about since I've been elected and long before that, and they're going to go on, and it's aging, the complications that surround it, and the goal that the state has had to try to age in place. Nobody is saying, hey, I want to get in a nursing home.
Right.
But it's a reality that happens sometimes because someone is so frail they can't live on their own. Sometimes it's a matter of finances, or it's not like when my grandparents were growing up that people lived in Philadelphia and your kids lived a couple blocks away.
Yes.
Or cousins were all over. People are spread out. So
Yeah.
I think it's care and it's concern. Property taxes is certainly an issue.
You've got it all. I mean, so really it's location, it's proximity to healthcare services that are really good, and probably in-home care agencies to support families and caregivers, and those are in the area. Our tax situation, you feel, is good but could be better maybe?
Our tax situation could always be better.
Okay.
Okay, but people have to keep in mind that the taxes, they deliver services back through those taxes. So we've been trying in Harrisburg for a number of years to make sure that we're looking at efficiencies with those tax dollars, looking at ways we're delivering services back.
Okay.
But remember, a lot of the services, you've got all different levels of government. And I find that a lot of people don't understand that. That, your local services are different than your school district services, are different than your state, are different than the federal services. I could even add in like water and sewer authority services, all of entities that have taxing power with different delivery systems for the services. And
Okay, so it's a complex job you have. It's a lot to keep track of.
It's complex, but my point is that the general public, and I'll throw myself into that, I got a call one morning and I was running for office that night. And the next day my dad literally handed me a legal pad and a pen, and he said, start to take notes. And it was just really giving a reminder of a civics lesson, that you get in 4th grade. You might get it in high school. You get it maybe if you took that course in college. And then you get it if you, tune into programs like this,
Right.
and, which are relatively new, and really read the paper. But, people as a whole are interested in, their job, their families, and believing that government's running well.
Right. And I guess they also believe what's right in front of them at the moment. So that brings me to a good topic of potholes.
I'm going to get you for that.
So do potholes exist in this area?
Yes, potholes exist. And some of them are as big as this table.
Oh, you know what?
And others are little sneaky suckers that just go after one tire.
I know. Well, I had my issues with tires recently too, and I was into the shop and got an alignment and all that. But I'm glad I did it. But I in general, I find that the potholes are being taken care of pretty quickly around here. That's what I see anyway.
Well, I'd love to end the conversation regarding potholes on that, but that's not what a lot of the people who write me are saying. You know,
Okay.
quite frankly, we've had another lousy winter. It wasn't as bad as last year. It takes money to fix potholes, but it also takes a couple of other things. Appropriate weather conditions.
Right.
When it is so cold, they're not mixing. They can't mix the stuff.
Asphalt, right.
The asphalt. They
Right.
can't mix it, so they'll do something else. I believe it's bubble gum and sawdust,
Yeah, yeah.
but you know, they promise me. PennDOT promises that it's not. But you know, they have to have dry conditions,
Right.
so you're not putting stuff in a puddle of water.
Exactly.
And you know, with a little luck, you don't have the next snowstorm that's going to come with the blade
Wash it
scrape,
away.
not only washing it, but that blade
Takes it right off.
takes it right off. So I actually have a meeting next week in Harrisburg with Acting Secretary Leslie Richardson, or Richards, I apologize. Richards,
okay.
She's the new Transportation Secretary.
Okay.
And, you know, that's certainly on the agenda, the number one thing on the agenda. I serve a district that has disparate populations, and a lot of times it seems that PennDOT drives out their work where ADT, average daily traffic, is higher.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, I've got constituents who move to an area that's more rural. They do that by choice.
Right.
And with that sometimes comes the attention going to more populated areas
Makes sense.
before where there's thousands of units
Right.
on a road a day or
Right.
tens of thousands
Right.
versus 400 units on a road a day.
Yes. Well, I think no matter what you do, I sense you're doing a pretty good job in Harrisburg with that. And let's just leave the pothole issue right there. It's a great one that you continue to pay attention to.
But my paying attention is one thing. These potholes are all over.
Yeah.
And we now have a list coming to us on a weekly basis, or sometimes, is it daily, Diane?
Yes.
Daily, as to what roads are being
Wow.
addressed in the county. Okay, there's 10 legislative districts or house seats in the county, so, you know, I'd like to see a whole week of just the 143rd district, but it doesn't work that way. Okay? I will continue. I even asked Diane today, what's it take to get me on a pothole crew just to see
Hey,
what's
that's a
going
great
on.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is a great idea. I promise I'll do it instead of Diane, but I don't think I'm going to be allowed to be donning an orange vest for safety reasons there.
Okay. Okay. Well, good stuff. Well, we spent enough time on that. Let's move on to some other interesting
Okay.
things because, and just we're gonna, kind of take a journey in a couple different directions today. And one of the areas I'm going to just look to some of the questions that came in from some of our, members of our task force because
Okay.
those are really good questions. And this one is from Rick Gaver, actually. Some of you know Rick.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy. So let's talk about pension issues that we have in Pennsylvania. I guess there's some issues with the plans and fixing some of these plans. What's going on there?
Well,
And who does it affect, too?
oh my gosh. Well, pensions affect your taxpayers, which is most people watching this, I'm sure.
Right.
Pensions affect retired state and school district employees, present state and school district employees. I'm going to say right now, under the present plan, pensions affect everyone in some way, even those people who are renting. While they may not be paying property taxes that affect the pension, somehow they're affected. It's just a very big umbrella.
Okay.
And as we just listened to, I concluded 3 weeks of budget hearings. I'm now on the Appropriations Committee, and one of my colleagues came up in every hearing in front of every agency with a very specific question regarding the general operating expenses per agency, and pulling out salaries, and then pulling out the benefits. And he's got copious notes and whatever he's going to come out with on it, whether it's another pension plan, we'll see. Your question is so broad that I'm almost like taking a step
I
back.
know, it's a broad one.
Under Governor Corbett, there was a big attempt made to try and address this. Back in 2001, some changes were made to the present pension systems, which quite frankly were not well thought out. They put enhancements on multipliers. They did not take into consideration that the booming market that we had, the investment market at that time, was going to be short-lived or could not be sustained. We have people living longer, so they're collecting longer. All different things. And then another factor that contributes to the problem we're in right now is the state allowed the employers, which was the school district, the state and the employers did not put in their share. So every employee is paying their 7.5% with every paycheck, but the investment pots were doing so well that the state's like, hot dog, we don't have to pay this now. We'll use that money for something else. And, it wasn't well thought out. So we have the perfect storm with this problem. And it's estimated right now that Pennsylvania, among its state pension systems, is looking at about a $50-ish billion liability.
That's with a B.
That's with a B, okay?
Wow.
It's a billion-dollar liability problem. And there's one solution, and it's called pay it off. And we don't have the money for that. We operate on a state annual budget of, right now, it's $29 billion and change. So to be looking at something at the 50, the good news is it doesn't have to be paid off all at once. These are payments that will be made over the years. So in answer to your question, what's being done, there are several different proposals out there about this. Okay, it's, other than potholes, if I bring this up, it certainly gets calls to my office. I find that different organizations, sometimes they put out not the complete information. There was not a plan in last year's session that was going to change the benefits for anyone already retired or anyone working already. Okay? There were plans that were proposed for new employees only. Okay? Right now, I just heard of a plan a week ago that was introduced by Senator Jake Corman, who's the head of the Senate. And I don't believe it's been introduced in writing, but verbally, he discussed a plan that would change the systems for present employees, preserving anything they've done, anything they've earned.
Contributed.
Well, their contributions are always going to be, but in terms of what the state's match will be, it will be preserved up until the time that there would be a legislative change. So any benefits accrued to date would be honored under their present plan. So if someone had 25 years in, their 25 years were as they know them, as they've planned for them. If they work another 5 years, that's where a change could be made. Now, I hope I put the word proposal in just so people don't get all A, excited that there's going to be a change on the horizon, or B, disappointed or outraged, as I get from some people. Proposals are out on very many different topics. I don't believe Governor Tom Wolf has a big appetite, so to speak, for making changes to the pension system. We haven't heard much from him. What we've heard, though, from the Senate is, hey, guess what? Unless the pensions issue is addressed, we're not going to be passing a budget. So, right now we're at a point where there's a lot of talk and we've got proposals that are out there, and we'll see where they go. It's very complicated, and a lot of times I find I don't write people back directly because I want to pick up the phone and have the conversation.
It's not a yes or no answer in many cases.
Oh, it's not a yes or no answer.
Right.
And
it's a lot of compromise.
One of the things I found with the bill that I thought we'd be voting on last fall, we didn't end up getting enough votes to pass it because people who wanted, it ended up being a compromise bill. And as many of my constituents who said, you better vote for that, when I'd call them and say, do you understand that if I vote for this, if I vote for it, it's not going to do anything to address the spikes that are in front of us, the contributions. Because what I had to vote for would do a great job 25 years from now,
Right.
when new employees would be retiring. But as far as present, it wasn't going to change things. So
Yeah.
I invite people to watch this discussion, send questions, understand that there are a lot of different
A
levels.
lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, one thing that came out during our budget hearings
Yeah.
is that, and this was Auditor General Jean D. Pasquale said, as we're looking at these state pension issues, don't take your eye off the local, the municipal pension issues. Now, we're fortunate where we live. I don't know of any of our municipalities or the county that are in trouble. We're pretty well funded here, but there's parts of the state, I mean, the city of Scranton, it was brought up. I mean, it's dire. Like, they
Right.
could be going bankrupt in the imminent future.
Well, let's leave it right there for the moment. Knowing that it's a complex issue and you're getting a lot of calls and you're trying to field them as best you can on the issue. And I think Rick will probably be satisfied with the answer you gave. So let me move on to another
Okay.
question. So, I've heard, again, this came through a question from Alice Vernon, who's not here today, but it's a good question because I didn't know this. You're newly appointed to the Air and Water Pollution Control and Conservation Committee.
Correct.
Okay, what does that mean, and what do you conserve? And what do you monitor, or what do you look after?
To be honest with you, I got a notification from the Speaker of the House last week
Okay.
that I've been appointed to that. And my
Why do you think they did that?
Why I hope that they give that is to put a voice from the Southeast
Okay.
onto that panel.
Nobody really was representing the Southeast.
I don't even have my arms around right now who else got that letter.
Okay,
Every session, appointments change.
okay.
So my secretary in Harrisburg told me today that I've got a meeting on my schedule off the top of my head. It's at noon on April 20th. And, you know, I look forward to seeing who's around. My letter just said,
You're
Representative
on.
Quinn, you're on it.
Welcome!
Thank
Now-
you.
Now,
Well, I look forward. It's an exciting and, you know, could be scary time when you consider all of the things that are happening right now that have environmental impacts. And one of the things I learned early on in this job, whether you're Republican or Democrat, that's not as important in dealing with environmental issues as it is from what region you're coming from in Pennsylvania. You know, we've got
Right.
a lot of diversity regionally.
yes.
You know, if you grew up in the coal area
Mm-hmm.
and you're watching legislative mandates be put on that industry, and you're watching jobs lost, and where your grandfather and your great-grandfather and your
Right.
family survived in it, you're putting up your sleeves and speaking out in favor of that industry, where
Fracking.
that's another
area.
wonderful example.
Superfund sites.
All of this. So
Right.
I look forward to being on it. I know that the chairman of it, he used to be in the House. He's now in the Senate. I'm not going to give his name in case he's not still the chairman.
Okay.
But we didn't always see eye to eye in terms of
That's why you're on it.
environment. That
Now
could
we
be
know.
it. That could be it.
Now, and
But-
well, isn't it good to have diverse opinions?
I like it better when they were all like mine. But yeah, no, it's the diversity. It makes for a healthy debate on the issues.
Understood. Do you know that, yeah, I just learned, you know, how it's almost like saying when Henry Ford said, everybody can have any color they want as long as it's black, right? But do you know why he said that? Because black was the fastest drying paint, and he wanted to be able to produce cars more quickly.
Well, I'd prefer it to be a green color these days,
Is that your-
especially with that committee
That's a favorite
assignment.
color.
With that committee assignment of, you know, I'll stick to the green.
Yeah.
But with the diversity, I share some space out there with a woman, a legislator from Clarion County, and it's really interesting when we get time to, you know, get into discussions. We just come from such different mindsets.
Yes.
And we
right.
recognize that we cancel each other's votes out.
Clarion's a beautiful country, but Bucks County is too. Well, let's ask some other interesting thoughts that came in from from local citizens. Let's talk about how the lottery funds are kind of, used, because I think, and we talked about it on a previous interview that we had about lottery funds. So, is there any insight into how those monies get used? And I mean, is it pretty transparent? Is the money going up? Is it going down? Do you have an impact on it yourself personally? And how much the, senior centers can kind of get of it from, I guess, the Area Agency on Aging primarily?
Well, let me just back up a little. When Pennsylvania initiated a lottery system, it was in the early 70s. And we are now the only state with one that dedicates 100% of the proceeds from the lottery to seniors.
That's right.
Okay? And that sounds great, and it is great. I've seen some changes in my time in office when budgets were tight. This goes back to my first or second term. Then Governor Rendell took lottery proceeds to pay for the administration of the aging agency.
Okay.
So
Department of Aging, basically.
Thank you. I was dropping
That's
the name.
Okay.
Yeah. So that came out of the general fund. Now it sits. That financial responsibility sits on the lottery fund. So yes, that money is still towards seniors and senior programs, but it's also had to pick up the running of that agency, a few $1 million. That, yeah, I'd much rather see that money go to services.
Right.
And I thought as administrations change, maybe that would be reverted, but it wasn't. It seemed to be working. The backlash was already had. So right now, those dollars that come in pay for, they support the Area Agency on Agency.
Okay.
Area Agency on Aging.
That's a good one.
Well, if I said AAA, people would think I'm talking about car. Right.
Right.
The state's able to give back a lot of money in terms of the property tax rent rebate. We have a real good PACE and PACE Net programs
Which
that
is
are
for
supported.
Most people may not know what PACE is.
It's an acronym that I forget exactly what it stands for right now, but it's basically prescription drugs.
Okay.
Prescriptions
That helps
for
people with
income eligibility.
lower income eligibility.
Correct.
Okay.
So you have income eligibility for the property tax rent rebate programs,
Okay.
as well as the PACE and PACE Net, the prescription.
Okay.
Right here at the senior center, the meals are subsidized. You opened up saying that there are meals served at lunchtime.
Right.
They're subsidized with those dollars. We have some transportation that's subsidized. There's the lottery does a good job, and one of the things that's it's managed by the lottery agency.
Okay.
And their management rate, if you consider their fees for that management,
Yes.
it's really low. I mean, we had under the last administration there was a move to privatize the lottery, and in my view, it just didn't make sense. Why take away something? I had a really bad feeling in my gut and challenged the administration on it. I'd like to think that, part of my work on that helped us keep the status quo. I mean, at the same time we were talking about privatizing it, the lottery was putting out figures that they had never had a better year. And it just seemed to run contrary. Why would we be getting rid of something, paying management fees that were in excess of what we were paying?
Okay. Well, that's a good answer. And I'm sorry, we have, we're kind of consolidated on our time, so I want to get to a couple other things.
But as you did say, what do I do to support it?
That would be.
I buy a lottery ticket now and then, and I hope you all do. So support your seniors and buy your lottery tickets.
Scratch away. Give them as gifts.
Right.
Let's just take a minute and talk about some of the kind of the senior days that you have, that you support around your area. Why do you do it? Where do you typically hold them? How often do you do them? Because I think people that are watching would be interested in attending them. I've been to one or more, and I think they're really phenomenal. But, maybe you'd like to explain that. Just take a minute to explain that.
Once a year, and I typically do it in September, and I do it right here at the Central Bucks Senior Center. I host what's called a Senior Expo, and I have between 35 and 40 vendors.
Okay.
I'm pretty darn specific that the vendors are going to be different public agencies, state, federal,
So they're not
local,
selling anything
county.
really, not generally.
No, I don't want them to sell anything because, then I'm picking among
Yeah.
different.
But they're information. They're giving information.
They're information.
Okay.
Sometimes there are a few that are private entities, but we've got health screenings there. We've got, recently we had a big, very successful drug take-back program.
Drug take back?
Open up that medicine cabinet,
Okay.
see what you might not be taking, see what's expired, especially keep an eye for those highly addictive codones,
Okay.
Vicodins, things like
Why
that.
do that?
Why do that? For a couple reasons.
Okay.
I live on a well, and whether you're on a well or you're on a public system,
Okay.
the old-fashioned way of
Down the
flushing them,
Toilet?
it goes right back into our water systems.
So basically what you're saying is if somebody listening takes their pills and as they've done in years past, just dumps them down the toilet.
Or in the trash can.
We're thinking that it's a good deed they're doing. They're not leaving them for the kids to pick up, grandkids to find, by accident. That really that's not a good thing. So they should take
it's
them to
bad.
this drug take back.
And we have,
Okay.
in April, I bet I could remember the name with the hand. I believe it's April 27th.
Okay.
There's going to be a county-wide drug take-back. So
Okay.
you might see at a local pharmacy or grocery store,
Okay.
police station, fire station, that they'll have it. So the idea is it's environmentally correct,
So there you go, environmental committee again.
okay? But the thing that is really important, it's for the safety of people who might be looking in their medicine cabinets, whether it's a toddler who can get access to a colorful pill that looks
Right.
like candy,
Yep.
or whether it's someone else who's looking for a
To
drug.
resell it or who knows what.
It's called drug
Use it.
diversion, and we have such a, according to our incoming Secretary of Health, the heroin addiction problem, it is at a crisis right now, far
Okay.
above, she placed it at above anything else. And people don't wake up and say, I'm going to try heroin. It's usually coming off of, looking, they can no longer get an Oxycontin, a hydrocodone, a Vicodin, and all those other
Right.
highly addictive drugs that are accessible in medicine cabinets. And then they go to the next thing that's cheaper.
So I guess for those that are
Accessible.
listening, I mean, the bottom line is just don't dump it out. Take it to one of these take-back programs.
Yeah, and what they do with it is they
Okay.
incinerate it.
Ah,
And
they
however
don't sell it or anything. They don't use it themselves.
love to find a way to recycle unused drugs,
Okay.
but we're just not there. I don't know if
We
we'll
don't
ever
want them
get
ending
there.
up in the water supply.
We don't want them in the wrong hands.
Wrong
with
hands.
Water supply or landfills.
Okay.
It's just there's some big bad substances out there, and when they mix with other stuff, you don't know what's going to be
Yeah,
formed.
it's like putting lithium batteries in the trash. You don't want to do that.
Something like that.
Okay. Can I move on?
Sure.
Do you mind? Let's do it. I got a couple other questions for you. The liquor control. So let's talk about what's happening, because in your community where you represent, grocery stores are starting to have beer sales, and they can start to even have wine by the glass if they have certain types of, food service, et cetera, et cetera. So just real quickly, because we just have a few minutes, take a couple minutes and give us your perspective on what you think should be done in terms of the Liquor Control Board. Should there continue to be state stores? Will there continue to be state stores? And is that changing rapidly or not?
Last session, and then again this session, actually it was about a month ago, I voted in favor of a bill that would take us away from the state-owned system.
Okay.
The bill didn't go anywhere in the Senate, and, quite frankly, I don't expect this bill to be passed in its current form.
Okay.
And I'm not crazy about this bill as it's written, but I do think that it's a conversation that needs to be had, and the only way to have it is to advance the bill to the Senate. Yes, the local Acme now sells beer.
Right.
They were able to buy a license. They bought what's called an R license, a restaurant license. For that, they have to have X amount of seats, and if you go through, you'll notice they took the salad bar, pushed it in there.
Right.
For all I know, they've got a hot dog machine, and now they're serving food and beer.
And I guess we should be fair and say Weiss has beer now too, and so several of them have it.
Several of them have it, and
Yeah.
others are looking to where to get the license.
Okay.
We have a tiered system here in Pennsylvania, and it's another one of those things that's complicated. We have our beer distributors who for years have
Had a
bought
lock.
licenses.
Yeah.
Well, they had a lock, but they also feel that they've been locked in that they're not allowed, like the Acme is, they're not allowed to sell something unless it's in a case.
Okay.
So if you just wanted a six-pack, you ended up like going to the local
the bar,
restaurant,
or
a
the
bar
bar.
just for that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a core function of government to be selling alcohol,
Okay.
especially when we look at the conflict of the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, the PLCB. Its job is to sell liquor, and its other job is to enforce
Mm-hmm.
the sale. It is in.
Kind of in
Some
conflict.
people could see that there's an inherent conflict there.
Mm.
I think that we need to modernize it. I bet we're the, only state in the nation where you couldn't buy a bottle of champagne past 8 o'clock on New Year's Eve.
Interesting.
I think
And
modernization.
I would be in that position. I would want to buy a bottle of champagne after 8 p.m.
Yeah, well, I'm usually, I would have too, but I think that I believe that what my constituents want is good pricing, convenience, and to be treated as adults. And when they think about that this system in place that we have right now was introduced as we came out of the prohibition. Governor Pinchot put it in place then. It's time to change it up, whether that's privatization or modernization. I want to make sure that we're, balancing all of that, and back to our previous discussion about addictions,
Right.
not just saying, you want to sell it
Yeah.
at your 7-Elevens till 4 in the morning or whatever.
Yeah. So it's a balancing act.
It's a balancing act, and
Yeah.
I hate that I'm not giving you a direct answer, and I recognize that I'm not.
No, but that's okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll take it.
Yeah. No, we're having a conversation. So let me do this. I've just got 2 minutes left.
Okay.
So if you had, kind of think about it for a second, but if you had something important to tell our viewers, the senior center, people that would come to the senior center, people that are seniors in your community and constituents of yours, and I'm a senior, I'm over 55. So what would you say to me, Kevin, there's kind of a number one thing that I want to get across to seniors in my constituency. What
Thank
would
you.
that be?
The number one thing that I'd like to get across to people, and it's not just seniors right
Okay.
now,
It's okay.
it is to try to understand what is in the Governor Wolf's budget proposal that's in front of us. Again,
Okay.
it's a proposal, and we have work to do. But what I found as interesting as it was frustrating was after sitting through 12 hours of testimony on the budget,
Yes.
I still came out with a lot of questions
Okay.
that either the Secretary of the Budget didn't know, which is scary because that's his budget, or knew and wasn't being forthcoming on very direct questions. And I say this because, whether I'm in the grocery store or wherever, I hear, hey, there's going to be an 18% reduction on our property taxes under this governor's budget. Okay? Well, the devil's in the details. Okay?
So rise it here, lower it here, raise it here, lower it here.
Well, exactly. The questions that we were asking that literally I was told, well, put it in writing, I'll get an answer, which was unacceptable to me because these were questions that I had asked of each different secretary under whose purview the specific
Yeah.
question was. And they were saying, we're not sure. So then I'm waiting for the budget secretary, the go-to guy on this, and would think I'd have an answer. The tax proposal, while your property taxes may go down under this scenario, do not keep your eye off the other elements of what will be going up.
Well, let's leave it right there for now. I'm going to...
It's a whole other show, though.
Exactly. It's a whole nother show. And I'd like to thank Representative Quinn for coming in today. Wonderful, wonderful time spent with you. And we hope you'll come back. Will you come back? Because I think you have something more to say.
I always have something more to say.
Right.
Just ask my husband.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Be well. We don't have any time for questions now, but thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.